Jeff Snyder here with TheWrap.com, and we are sitting down with Maika Monroe, the star of It Follows, which opens on Friday the 13th.
Yes, sir.
So tell me, what did you think the first time that you heard this premise? I love it, but it takes a sort of common fear and expands upon it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember first reading the script, and it was very different, and I didn't know how it was going to translate into a movie. Just the topic, and it's not your typical horror movie. And so I watched David's previous film, and it's such a refreshing style to me. I saw it, and it's very simplistic, and I feel like you don't see that often with films, and having that in the horror genre I thought would be really interesting. So that's kind of what initially drew me to the project.
I mean, horror movies have long preached the perils of promiscuity, and
Mm-hmm.
they've preyed upon women in danger. Is this movie saying anything new about the dangers of sex or things like that?
I don't know. I mean, it's been pretty cool because there's so many different ideas behind this film. There's so many people that see it and are like, doesn't mean this, doesn't mean that. And I think, people have asked David, and David has kind of the same answer. And I agree with it. It's up to your own interpretation. I mean, people see it in such different ways. I think kind of interesting one was someone said that does like the sex, reference to technology, and how, is there some sort of metaphor there? So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of, I guess, up to your own perspective.
Well, what is your take on what it represents? Like, I kind of saw it as regret or shame.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like this consistent fear, and also like, I think, death is always there. Like, we're all going to die at one point, and whether it comes tomorrow or years to come, it's always there, and that's always something that's going to happen. For me, I guess that's kind of what it represents, is, that there is an end, and it could be right there, it could be far away, you don't really know.
I mean, a lot of horror movies these days rely on ghosts and monsters, and they're kind of, in your face. This one is very subtle in its terror. It's more psychological, and the It is very slow but relentless. Do you feel like that will help this stand out in the marketplace? You think it sets it apart from other horror movies?
Yeah, I think that's almost what makes it scarier, is that it's a very slow pace, but it's never going away. It's always there, and there's such an elegance to the film, a beauty, and like I said before, a simplicity that I think really adds to the film, and I think the characters are also real and relatable, and I think that helps with the story as well.
They definitely felt like real teenagers, and the film's definitely, it's gorgeous. It looks like an art film, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, you shoulder a lot of responsibility in this because you're in virtually every scene. How does that kind of pressure affect your performance? I mean, does it?
To be honest, I really wasn't thinking about that. I mean, I really like the character, and I like the story and kind of the arc where, she begins and where she ends. So, but going into it, I'm not thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to be in every, I'm not thinking about that. It was really only until I watched it for the first time and realized like my face is in almost every second of it. And it was like, obviously, really hard to watch myself, but it was only really till after.
Was this like a more intense shoot than something like The Guest?
Oh, yeah. I mean, totally different atmospheres. The Guest is, you can tell with the film even, it's much more lighthearted.
Well, talk to me about working with David and how his approach to genre filmmaking was different than someone like Adam Wingard.
David is very, he doesn't come from a horror background. His last film had nothing to do with the genre, so I think more than attempting to make a horror film, he wanted to tell this story, and initially this came from his nightmare, so it's very close to him, and it's a close story, and how he's very involved. He knew exactly what he wanted, the look of it. A huge part was the wardrobe and the styles of these characters, which was really interesting.
So, I've read a couple of your interviews about this movie, one in which you say you draw upon some difficult experiences in your own past, and another one you credit a playlist for actually getting you into the headspace. So, like, what was on this playlist? What do you listen to psych yourself up for a scene?
I'm trying to, because I've had this question before where people are like, what were you listening to? I'm like, I can't even remember. I mean, that whole shoot was still just kind of like a blur of like darkness, and I'm like, oh, good Lord, don't want to go back there. But it was just, I don't know, like just darker music that got me into, a very unhappy mindset, I guess.
I ask because music is a really important part of this film. I
Yeah,
feel like
oh,
Disaster Piece does a fantastic job with this score, and it really sets the mood.
I mean, yeah, going in, I had no idea. It was the first time seeing the score, it all put together was like, wow.
He didn't have you like listen to Disaster Piece or anything.
No, we didn't know. We had no idea before.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
that would have been cool. That would have been cool to hear.
Well, Maika, thank you for dropping by as always. Guys, go see It Follows when it opens on March 13th.
Yes.